There comes a moment in every man's life when words are no longer enough. You've said what needed to be said. You begged. You explained. You tried to prove your worth. And still, she walked away. Now you're left with the silence. But here's the truth most men never realize. That silence is not the end. It's the beginning of your return to power. Because when a woman loses control over the man she thought she had wrapped around her finger, when you stop reaching out, when you cut contact, not as a tactic, but as a statement of self-worth, something shifts, not just in her, in you. This isn't about getting her back. It's not about playing games. It's about remembering who the hell you are and finally refusing to let your emotions be held hostage by someone who didn't choose you when it mattered. No contact isn't a strategy. It's a declaration. You're done negotiating your value. You're done chasing love that doesn't meet you with respect. You're done bleeding for someone who felt fine letting you fall apart. In the silence you're stepping into, there is strength, there is clarity, and if you stay with it, there is transformation. So let's talk about what really happens when you stop reaching out. Not the surface-level fantasy of she'll come back, but the deeper, darker, unspoken truths that no one warned you about. The truth that sets you free. Let's begin. So if you're done explaining, done chasing, and ready to reclaim who you are, then it all starts here, with control. The kind she had and the kind you just took away. Control, that was her comfort. Not love, not longing, not connection, but the quiet confidence of knowing exactly where she stood in your world. And for a while, you gave her that. You texted first. You apologized first. You showed up even when she pulled away. She didn't have to guess what you were feeling because you made it obvious every time. It gave her power, not because she was malicious, but because human nature clings to predictable. And you in her life had become just that until you stopped. No more texts, no more explanations, no more emotional handouts. Just silence. And that is when the shift began. See, most women don't fall apart when a man disappears. They fall apart when the control vanishes. When they realize they no longer have influence over how you feel, what you do, or whether you even care anymore. Because control is how she measured her value in the relationship. And when you remove yourself fully, cleanly, and without drama, you dismantle that dynamic. That's why she might come back. Not because she suddenly remembered your worth, but because the power she once had is gone, and she needs to feel it again. It's not about you. It's about the control you represented, and the discomfort she now feels without it. This is where you stand firm. This is where most men fail. Thinking a return means redemption. No, it means she's testing the waters to see if she still owns the strings. But you've cut them, and now you're the one in control. And once you remove her grip, once you've stepped out her frame, something else begins to happen. She starts thinking, not because you spoke, but because you didn't. There's something she never expected you to do. Stop. Stop texting first. Stop asking how she feels. Stop orbiting her life like your purpose depended on her attention. Because for weeks, maybe months, you made her the center of everything. You pursued. You showed up. You explained yourself. And somewhere along the way, she got comfortable. Not because she's cruel, but because she believed you would always be there. Always reaching. Always chasing. But when you stopped, everything changed. Suddenly, the world didn't feel so centered anymore. Not for her. The man who once made her feel important was gone. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And in that absence, something deeper kicks in. Reflection. She begins to wonder, why the silence? Did he move on? Was I wrong about how much he cared? Was I wrong to think I could disappear and he'd still stay? This isn't about missing you. Not at first. It's about the space you created and the discomfort it brings. Because when you were chasing, she had the luxury of standing still. Now that you've stopped, she has to move or be left behind. The dynamic flipped. And that flip doesn't just rattle her, it fascinates her. Because she's used to being the one who gets pursued. She's not used to being the one doing the math. The one wondering. The one asking, what if I was wrong? Your silence? That's not passive. It's active pressure. And the longer you remain still, grounded, focused, the louder that pressure becomes. She starts thinking because you stopped chasing. And in that space where your attention used to be, she starts to feel something she hasn't in a long time, the weight of your absence. But that silence isn't empty. No, it's a mirror. And when she looks into it, she doesn't see you. She sees something far more unsettling herself. Most men think silence is just absence, but real men know it's a weapon, a mirror, and what she sees in that mirror, that's what haunts her. See, when you were constantly available, she never had to reflect. Your presence did all the emotional heavy lifting. You were there to reassure, to explain, to fill the awkward pauses. But when you stopped, when your voice disappeared from her inbox, when your energy vanished from her orbit, she was left with the quiet. And that quiet is not neutral. It forces her to face everything she's been avoiding. Because silence is powerful. It doesn't attack. It reveals. It reveals how much you relied on your attention to feel validated. It reveals how much power she had and lost. And it reveals one undeniable truth. She felt more than she ever admitted, even to herself. Now, every unanswered message, every day without your name lighting up her phone, becomes a whisper. You're not in control anymore. She may not say it. She might even post smiling selfies or pretend she's unbothered. But inside, that silence is screaming, because it reflects something she didn't prepare for. Your emotional independence. That's the part she wasn't expecting. She expected sadness, maybe even begging. But what she got was stillness. Stillness that tells her, you've stepped back not to punish, but to protect your peace. And she doesn't know what to do with that. So she stares into the mirror your silence created. And for the first time, she's forced to confront her own reflection. Without your presence to soften the view, that's not a tactic. That's power. Your power. And the longer she stares into that mirror, the more another fear begins to grow. One that runs deeper than silence. The fear of being replaced. She can handle silence for a while. She can fake detachment. Even convince herself you didn't matter as much as you think. But there's one thing she can't shake. One fear she can't ignore. The fear of being replaced. Because when you go silent and you stay gone, a dangerous question starts whispering in her mind. Has he moved on? But there's one thing she can't shake. One fear she can't ignore. The fear of being replaced. Because when you go silent and you stay gone, a dangerous question starts whispering in her mind. Has he moved on? Not is he hurt. Not does he miss me? But is there someone else now sitting where I used to be? That thought, it cuts deeper than anything you ever said. Because it's no longer about attention. It's about position. And here's the truth. Most women aren't ready to face the idea that they're no longer the one. Especially when they were the ones who once held all the power. When you were chasing, they had no fear of being replaced. They had certainty. Your time. Your energy. Your emotional availability. But now, you reclaimed all of it. And the space you once gave to her now feels like it might belong to someone else. That possibility creates a storm in her mind. Not because she loves you. Not because she suddenly realized your worth. But because she can't stand the image of another woman being in the place she used to own without effort. This fear triggers her ego, her pride, and her instincts all at once. And suddenly, she's watching. She's scrolling through your posts. She's asking mutual friends subtle questions. She might even reach out with a, hey, just checking in. But make no mistake, it's not always about rekindling romance. It's often about reclaiming territory. Because if she sees herself as replaceable in your world, she starts to question her value in her own. And nothing shakes a woman more than realizing the man she thought would always be there might be building a future where she no longer fits. But here's what cuts even deeper than that. Realizing she's being replaced by a man she once took for granted simply because he was always there. There's a bitter truth most men learn too late. The more available you are, the less she values you. It's not because she's ungrateful. It's not because she's heartless. It's because What is always there never feels rare. You text back immediately. You cancel plans just to see her. You're there when she needs a vent, validation, or comfort. And at first, she likes it. She smiles. She says she appreciates how attentive you are. But slowly, something shifts. Not because you changed, but because you never made her miss you. There's no longing, no wondering, no absence to spark reflection. And in a world saturated with distraction, predictable men disappear into background noise. The man who is always available becomes the man she assumes will always wait, always forgive, always be ready whenever she decides to reappear. That's not love. That's convenience. And no woman chases convenience. She chases certainty with challenge. You want to be chosen? Then stop being the one she knows will always say yes. Have your own life, your own priorities, your own time that isn't negotiable. Because when your presence becomes optional, so does your respect. Being available at all times signals something deeper, that you have nothing else going on. No purpose, no boundaries, no self-respect. And once she senses that, it's over, even if she's still around. She may still text, still flirt, still keep you in the loop. But in her mind, you're no longer the man. You're just a man, easily replaced. So step back, let her feel the weight of your absence, and let her learn that your time, your energy, and your heart are not things she's entitled to. They're things she must earn. And when that man pulls back, not out of anger, but out of clarity, what's left behind is not a void, it's emotional space. And for her, that space is chaos. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's the presence of something she can't control. Most men think silence is passive. They believe that saying nothing means doing nothing. But if you're grounded, if you're doing the inner work, silence becomes a signal that says, I no longer need this to define me. And that disrupts her entire emotional rhythm. Because women are intuitive. They pick up on energy before they hear words. And when a man who once chased suddenly becomes calm, still unbothered, it forces her into discomfort. Not because she's cruel, but because the certainty she once had has vanished. You were the emotional constant, the check-in, the voice that filled the silence. Now that you're gone, she's left alone, with her thoughts, her questions, and her unresolved emotions. And for many women, that space is unbearable. Not because they miss your jokes or your morning texts, but because silence makes her confront the very feelings she buried under convenience and control. She has to ask herself, why does this absence bother me? Why does it feel heavier than I expected? Why am I checking for someone I claim to be over? That emotional space you created, it's no longer about punishment. It's about reflection, her reflection. And that's the part that disorients her the most. She expected you to fight, to plead, to remind her she mattered. Instead, you gave her distance. You gave her stillness. You gave her time. And time in silence is a mirror she can't escape. So don't rush to fill that space. Don't panic if she doesn't respond. Let it breathe, because every day you remain silent, you become louder in her mind. And in that quiet void, one thing becomes clear. You were never the one who needed closure. She was 3, and it only gets worse. Because now she realizes something else. She didn't just crave your attention, she craved the chase. But what happens when the chase ends? Let's be honest. She loved being chased. It validated her. It made her feel wanted. It reminded her that she was still the prize, still desirable, still in control. And you played that role well. You gave her the thrill, the attention, the reassurance. You made her feel like she mattered more than anything else. But the moment you stopped chasing, the rules changed. She expected the attention to last forever. She thought the pursuit would never end. That no matter how little she gave in return, you'd always be there, reaching, reacting, reaffirming. But now, she feels something she never prepared for. Disinterest. And it doesn't just confuse her, it disturbs her. Because here's what most men don't understand. For many women, the chase isn't about love. It's about power. It's about knowing someone desires them enough to keep trying, keep texting, keep proving. The pursuit isn't just romantic, it's emotional leverage. So when you walk away, when you go silent without announcement, without anger, without closure, you take that leverage away. And what's left? A woman who feels the absence, not of your presence, but of her ability to command it. She doesn't hate you for disappearing. She hates that the game stopped, because in the game, she felt powerful. Outside of it, she's just uncertain. And uncertainty is not something she enjoys. It flips the emotional table. Now she's the one wondering. Now she's the one watching. Now she's the one asking, why isn't he chasing me anymore? So remember this. She loved the chase, but she hates losing it even more. And the man who stops chasing, he becomes a storm in her silence. Not because he's playing games, but because he's finally playing by his own rules. That's when she starts watching more than she speaks. Because suddenly, your absence doesn't just feel unfamiliar. It feels threatening. It proves one thing: you're not desperate. Desperation is loud. It texts at midnight. It waits by the phone. It compromises, pleads, over-explains. But presence built on self-respect? It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It steps back and lets silence speak. When you go no contact, it's not just about avoiding her. It's about declaring something deeper without saying a word. I no longer need your attention to feel like a man. That hits different, because she's used to men who bend. Men who fold at the first sign of affection. Men who jump at every text. Cancel plans just to keep the spark alive. But you've stepped out of that frame. Not with anger. Not with pride. With purpose. You're not gone because you're wounded. You're gone because you refuse to trade your dignity for crumbs of attention. That absence, it shakes her, because suddenly you're no longer signaling that she defines your value. You're signaling that you define your own. And that's rare. Most men act like their self-worth depends on being chosen, on being liked, on being needed. But when your silence says, I'm whole without you, I'm grounded without you, I'll grow with or without you, you shift the emotional power dynamic completely. You're not proving anything. You're simply living. Living with direction, with boundaries, with strength. And that strength, not shown through noise but through absence, leaves a mark. Because a man who doesn't need validation becomes the one she wants validation from. So when you're tempted to reach out, to explain yourself, to show you still care, don't. Let your absence be the final word. Because in that space, one thing becomes undeniable. You're not desperate. You're disciplined. But beware, just because she returns doesn't mean she's changed. Most of the time, she comes back not to love you but to test you. She texted you, out of nowhere. Hey, just thinking about you. Or maybe a subtle comment on your social post. Something innocent, something disarming. And instantly, your heart kicks up, hope creeps in. You think, maybe she realized what she lost. Maybe she still cares. But pause, because here's the truth most men refuse to see. She didn't come back to love you. She came back to test you. Not a test you asked for. Not one based in honesty or healing, but a test of control. She wants to know if the power she once held still lives. If she can say a few words, drop a breadcrumb, flash a little attention, and you'll come running like before. Because if you do, if you respond instantly, if you pour your heart out, if you confess how much you've missed her, she wins. Not your heart, not the relationship, just the control. And the moment she gets it, she might disappear again. This isn't cruelty. It's ego. It's her trying to see if she's still the woman who can shake your world with a message. But here's where your discipline matters. Because a man grounded in himself doesn't fall for the same patterns. He doesn't confuse contact with commitment. He doesn't confuse curiosity with care. He knows that silence was hard-earned, that peace was built brick by brick, and he protects it. So when she comes back, you don't react. You observe. You let her actions, not her words, speak. And most of all, you ask yourself, is this love or is this just a reset of the old game? Because if it's the game, you already won by walking away. Don't let a breadcrumb drag you back into hunger. And when you pass that test, when you don't flinch, don't fold, she's left with the truth. One she can't admit, but you must see clearly. It was never about love, it was always about ego. Let's cut the fantasy. She didn't come back because she's overwhelmed with love. She didn't stay up all night, realizing you're the one. No, she came back because something inside her pride cracked. And she needs to know if she still has a grip on your world. This isn't about the heart, it's about the ego. When you stop chasing, when you stop reacting, you didn't just vanish. You took away something vital to her identity, your validation. She used to feel powerful around you, desired, central, safe in the belief that she could reach out at any time and you'd come running. But when you didn't, she felt the sting, not of heartbreak, but of irrelevance. That's what she can't live with. Not losing you, but losing the effect she had on you. It shakes her, because if you, the man who once centered his world around her, no longer reacts, then maybe she wasn't as irreplaceable as she thought. Maybe she overestimated her influence. And that is ego death. So she returns to test, to poke, to see if she can still stir something in you, even if just for a moment. But that moment is a trap, because if you fall for it, if you validate her ego again, she gets what she came for and disappears, leaving you confused, hopeful, bleeding again from a wound you already closed. Don't mistake her return for healing. Sometimes a woman comes back not to love you, but to prove to herself that you still could. And your job is not to prove anything, but to protect everything you rebuilt in your silence. Let her ego chase shadows. You've already walked into light. This was never about her. Not really. Not in the end. It was always about you. And what kind of man you become when you're no longer trying to be enough for someone who couldn't see your worth. You see, she may come back. She may text. She may flirt. She may even cry. But now you know better. Now you know the truth behind her return. The control, the power, the chase, the ego. And now you hold the mirror. You hold the silence. You hold the frame. You're not the man you were when you started this journey. You've bled. You've broken. But you've also rebuilt. You learned that real strength isn't loud. It's quiet. It's calm. It's the power to walk away without leaving anything behind. Because now you don't chase what walks away. You don't beg for attention. You don't need her to see your value. You see it every damn day. So when she comes back, don't fall for the smile. Don't fold for the memory. Don't confuse attention with affection. Look at her, not with anger, not with hope, but with peace. Because this time, you're the one who decides. Will you let her back in? Or will you move forward? Unapologetic, unshaken, untouchable? The choice isn't hers anymore. It's yours. And for the first time, that power feels natural. If this message hits something deep inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video. Drop your story in the comments. No filters. No shame. Subscribe if you're ready to become a man who no longer chases, but builds. Because this channel, it's not about getting her back. It's about getting you back. No contact wasn't a tactic. It was your rebirth. And you're just getting started.